Hey everybody, hope you're doing alright, and welcome to part D of my CD collection. Get it? CD, and this is part D. Aren't I funny? No, just stop it. Just stop it, you idiot. Just stop doing that. No one finds that funny. No one. So part D, you should know the score by now surely. It's going to feature all of the artists and bands and such that are under the letter D. So I'm just going to get straight into it, guys. Yeah! Here we go! What have we got here? So first off, I'm going to be talking about DJ Shadow with Introducing. So this is a seminal instrumental hip-hop album from 1996, and this is DJ Shadow's pretty much only acclaimed album, sadly, but it doesn't really matter because most people think when they talk about classics, just in general even, they think of Introducing, because for its time as well, it was a really just ahead of the curve. So yes, instrumental hip-hop, it's a long album as well, so you're thinking, is it really attention seeking enough to warrant a full listen? Well, totally, absolutely. It's just, again, just amazing, just colourful production on everything, just excellent ideas, and all of the different samples just work seamlessly. The beats themselves, even, what was it, nearly 25 years old this album is, the beats are still really, really fresh. It concludes a lot of classics: Building Steam with a Grain of Salt, Mutual Slump, The Numbers Song, What Does Your Soul Look Like. There's a lot of absolute classics on here, so check out this one. To make space and make it easy to pack these away, I'm going to, instead of just putting these down, I'm going to chuck them on my bed over there. So there's going to be a lot of flinging, because my bed's next to my collection, you see. So if you hear some smashing noises, that's an explanation too. Yeah, so now we're going to talk a bit about Dr. Dre. Yeah, West Coast absolute classic, legendary rapper who obviously was one of the members of NWA, and obviously has a classic solo discography. Not many albums, in fact, as far as I'm concerned, officially at least, these are the only 3 albums that he ever released. So The Chronic, which is an amazing album, features some of my favourite 90s hip-hop tracks. The Day that took over, Nothing But a G Thing, D's Nuts. It's funny the second time I do it, you know. Or not funny at all. And of course put Snoop Doggy Dogg in front of everyone's eyes. So yeah, Chronic. 2001. It's a bit more scatterbrained in terms of quality, but still has some great Dre tracks. Obviously features Eminem quite prominently, and he's great on the whole thing. My favourites on here, so Forget About Dre, the next episode, Still Dre, Explosive's a great track. So this is still really worth checking out, even though it's not as good as The Chronic. And the album Compton, which is extremely forgotten about, but it actually has a lot of really good songs on it as well. Yeah, it doesn't really hold a candle to the other 2 albums, but still there's some great tracks on here. Guys, I could not recommend higher that you check out the song Deep Water. That's an amazing song. Loose Cannons is a great track as well. There is a lot of good tracks on here, but it's a bit more scattered in terms of its quality than The Chronic especially, but there's still a lot of great tracks on that. Alright, so D'Angelo, this is R&B soul legend basically, who was more prominent in the 90s until years and years later he came back with the Black Messiah. I haven't got everything by him. I know he made an album I think called Brown Sugar, but this is a fantastic album that he made called Voodoo. Features some of the smoothest and just great sensual tracks ever made. There's a song on here, the last song on here, Africa, which is one of my favourites ever. Couldn't recommend that enough. The song with Redman and Method Man, which I can't remember its name. I mean, can you read that? I can't read that. What's the point of writing tracks to titles if you can't even read it? Unless my eyes are just getting really bad. But anyways, doesn't matter. Yeah, if you like R&B, you've got to check out that album. Oh dear. And it wasn't until years and years later that he eventually followed up with The Black Messiah, which came out quite recently and is actually as good as Voodoo. Features the 2 Back to the Future parts, 1,000 Deaths is on there, Sugar Daddy, what's on there? Oh, The Charade is on here. Yeah, so if you never checked out this album and you were a fan of the previous 2 albums that he released, then what are you waiting for? Brilliant stuff. Alright, so this is Peace and Love, Dadawa. This is a form of reggae, I suppose. Some extremely long tracks, but it's more of a sort of groove and sort of a nice sort of vibrant feeling that you get from here, instead of just like short snappy tracks. Zion Land's great. It's kind of like the tracks really are like one big track altogether because it flows really well, but this is just a great jam. It's really, really nice and sort of sunny, and just feel good music. So check out Peace and Love, Dadawa. Yeah, Ringo must have ripped this guy off, you know, but I know. And I've got 2 Daft Punk albums that, well, at least on me. I used to own Homework, and I used to own Human After All, and I used to own the latest album as well that they released, but I don't know, I just don't play them that much. But Discovery over here, I mean, one of my favourite albums of all time. I've just got the whole Interstellar 5555, you know, that was just like, seeing that as music videos on VH1 was a real big part of my childhood. So this album means a hell of a lot to me. I hold this to a candle to like Gorillaz in terms of how much I used to enjoy them that much as a kid. And I used to just love to work out to this when I was a kid too, like run to it. And if I just want to be, you know, have my spirits lifted up, I just listen to Discovery, not because of the music itself, but just because it brings me to a form of escapism, which just brings me back to sort of simpler, happier times, you know. But forgetting all of the rose-tinted glasses malarkey, you know, I mean, still Something About Us and Face to Face, Digital Love, those 3 tracks, I mean, it just rank as some of my favourite, you know, just house music tracks ever. In fact, some of my favourite tracks ever. You guys surely have heard a lot of tracks on here, but I couldn't encourage you more to listen to the full album. It's just an absolute classic. And Alive 2007 is a great live album, and it features songs from a lot of the, you know, albums that were released up until 2007, but it's one of those occurrences where the live versions are better than the studio versions, especially the tracks that features Human After All on here, which, yeah, it doesn't hold a candle to just the whole energetic and really just high octane sort of magic that they got on this release. But yeah, the version of Touch It, Oh Yeah, Touch It, and Technologic is just far better than the original versions. Steam Machine as well. But yeah, just a fantastic live album, this. Coming up is 2 albums by Dalek. These guys are industrial hip-hop, basically, forming hip-hop with noise and some very dark and urban sounds. You get that quite often nowadays, a lot of the thanks to Death Grips and Clipping, but these guys predate them nearly to a decade, so very ahead of the time. Both of these albums are really worth checking out if you like your hip-hop that's really, really dark, basically. Sometimes quite scary and macabre too, so yeah, Dalek, recommend them. Have to represent Richard Dawson since he's from up here in the northeast. This guy is like obviously a Newcastle-based folk artist who is especially on here Avon Folk. He released an album called 2020, which is a lot more versatile than contemporary genres, but this one could, I suppose, have came out in sort of the late 60s and early 70s when freak folk was a big thing. Yeah, this is extremely interesting music. It's got a bit of a medieval sound to it as well. Yeah, so Richard Dawson, recommend him. So I've got 2 albums by Danny Brown. He's one of my favourite rap artists. I'd love to get a physical copy of Triple X one day, because that's one of my favourite albums of all time. But for now, I own Old, which is it's probably his weakest studio album, at least one of his more recent albums, one of the weakest ones. Just not a one where it's really consistent quality wise throughout the whole album, but again, though, it has some of my favourite Danny Brown tracks on here. 25 Bucks is great. The song Side B Dope song is fantastic. Break It Go is one of my favourites by him. Handstand's brilliant as well. Kush Comb is really catchy too. I'll probably have to re-listen to it sometime. Dope Fiend Rental I really like too. So there is a lot of tracks on here that I like. Just I don't love every single track, you know. But Atrocity Exhibition, this has really put him on the marker as one of the greatest rap artists that's going on at the moment. This is known as a modern classic. I still prefer Triple X. I'm in the minority there, I know, but I do love this album a lot. The songs White Lines, Pneumonia and Dance in the Water, like those 3 tracks, just like one of my favourite flows to an album ever. I mean, there's only a couple of tracks that I just don't like on here. I'm not huge on the song Today. I think it's not a very good track, and I think Hell For It's a bit of a weak closer. But I practically at least really like all of the other tracks. It's just a case where Triple X, I pretty much love every track on there, so that's why I prefer it, you know. But Lost, Ain't It Funny, When It Rain as well, really dope, which obviously is like a great posse track. Tell Me What I Don't Know. Yeah, production by The Alchemist, just amazing on here. Danny Brown, you know, just a lot of people say, but it's true, like, just listen to the instrumentals on here, you'd think, how does a rapper flow over here? And he does, you know. Dark Throne, Transylvania Hunger. This is a classic black metal record from the sort of second wave of black metal, which was like sort of the mid-90s era. These guys are from Norway. I do love Dark Throne a lot. My favourite album by them personally isn't Transylvania Hunger, but this is still a great album. The one that I really like is A Blaze in the Northern Sky, which is just a one that I'd love to own on record, on vinyl, you see. But I do really like this too. Extremely cold, quite abrasive, riffs are really catchy though. Vocals, just classic black metal sort of wretched vocals. Yeah, I'd say this is like a good sort of black metal starter pack album, you know. And going from Dark Throne to Dark Tranquillity, these guys are Swedish, I think. These guys are like a Swedish sort of melodic death metal group. This isn't the one that most people go to for like the starter album to listen to when it comes to Dark Tranquillity. But it's only because I heard a few tracks on here that I thought this was really good, and I just ended up really liking the album, so I'll need to listen to a lot more Dark Tranquillity, because this is still the only album I've heard by them. But Zodia Jackalite, I think it's pronounced. Check out that track, guys. Brilliant track. But yeah, this is still really good. Like I say, it's not the one that most people rush to when recommending a Dark Tranquillity album. But yeah, I still recommend it if you like some death metal, you know. Oops, I just realised I forgot my promise. I was saying I was chucking all my albums on the bed, but I just put them down there. Forget it, I'll just chuck all of these now. Alright, bit of a Miles Davis collection for you guys. A bit like John Coltrane, what I was saying in the previous collection. I mean, he's just released so many albums, many of them extremely highly acclaimed. And it would take me a long time to get through all of them. When I get to Z, I'll probably use that as a moment to go through my box sets, not one of Miles Davis box set, which has a few of his albums. But in terms of just little CDs here, I own this twofer, which has Roundabout Midnight and Milestones. Sort of his early, I think, 50s era there. Kind of Blue, which many people consider the greatest jazz album ever. Sketches of Spain, this is a great one. I recommend many people check this one out as well. But finally, here's the one that I've wanted to really try and get into, that's kind of not really tested my patience, but I've listened to for on and off years now, and I still don't feel like I can enjoy it as much as I really could. Bitches Brew, probably just because it's just such a massive album. I'll get around to it one day, but I know that this is known as an absolute classic. In terms of favourite Miles Davis albums, you know, I think just On the Corner is the one I always like to go to. Miles Smiles I really like too, but some of these are ones that I don't own physically. But anyways, going on from that, we've got a fantastic post-hardcore album here. These guys are just fantastic. Death from Above 1979, You're a Woman, I'm a Machine. Brilliant, man. It's just a two-piece band, but from what they can do with just a bass and a drum, it's just fantastic. Just, oh man, I just thought this would just be like sort of when I first listened to it, but I could not recommend this highly enough if you like your rock music. Romantic Ride's one of my favourites ever. Black History Month is on here. The Sexy Results, Pull Out, man. It's such a good album, this. Like, I just wish I could one day have this on the dance floor and I would go nuts. Death Spell Omega. This is just an EP that I randomly picked up. Again, black metal, but very, very strange black metal. Very long, winding tracks, and pretty avant-garde too. They're still going, they're still making freaky music. The latest album is probably one of the weirdest metal records I've ever heard. But yeah, no, this is still good. I don't listen to it all the time, but Death Spell Omega, loads of albums I still need to try out by them. And a few Deep Purple albums. So we've got Purple and Rock, Machine Head, and the live album, again, one of the known as the greatest live albums of all time, made in Japan. Deep Purple, classic heavy rock, one of the pioneers of what later became heavy metal. It's just pretty self-explanatory if you've never tried Deep Purple, you know. If you like your rock music, if you want to see what laid the foundations to what rock later became, you've got to try Deep Purple. Now I get to quickly talk about De La Soul, who were technically the first hip-hop group I ever really got into. First hip-hop album I ever got was It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back by Public Enemy, but I'd say De La Soul is definitely the hip-hop group that I got into most thanks to Gorillaz, with just many of the tracks that De La Soul are featured on, you know. So, I mean, Super Fast Jellyfish I love, with obviously Moments on the new album Humans. I really like, well, Feel Good Inc. is the obvious one, but 3 Feet High and Rising, when I heard about this, I was like, oh, psychedelic hip-hop, oh, it's like Golden Age, but like really fun and playful, and which it no doubtly is. This is just, again, childhood classic for me. 3 Feet High and Rising, absolutely love it. I couldn't say enough. You've got to check out this, like 3 Feet High and Rising. Just such a lovely album. De La Soul is Dead. This is a great follow-up. Has some of my favourite De La Soul tracks on here. Keeping the Faith is on here. Oh man, here's another, just a bit like I suppose the Beach Boys has Add Some Music to Your Day. Just something that just does something to us when I hear it in a good way. There's a song on here called A Roller Skating Jam named Saturdays. Oh, man, I wish I was my age or a bit younger in the late 80s, early 90s, and this was being played on the radio and I was just out on a Saturday listening to this. Oh well, Time Machine, when it gets invented, that'll be one of the first things I'll do. But yeah, this is definitely a bit more darker compared to the debut, because it's got songs on here like Millie Pulled a Pistol on Santa, that's a heavy track. Ring 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 Hey 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 is a classic as well on here. My Brother's a Basshead's classic. Biddies in the BK Lounge, that's a classic. Peace Porridge is a great track. Yeah, so Essential as well. So Maloon Mind State and Stakes is High, these are the third and fourth album. These are also just really worth checking out. De La Soul first 4 albums, they're just essential. I'm a bit on the other albums. I haven't heard the latest album that they've done. I want to check that out soon. I've heard singles of it, but there is an album that they're also done in 2005, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's got a great track by MF Doom. But yeah, those 4 albums by De La Soul, I'd say they're worth checking. out. Dead Kennedys, Canadian hardcore punk group, just again, Jello Biafra, great lyricist, sort of classic vocals. But yeah, so this is Fresh Fruit and Rotten Vegetables, the debut album with Holidays in Cambodia's on there. Just a lot of classic tracks on here. And this is like a sort of twofer, so this is Plastic Surgery Disasters with In God We Trust, which is an EP that they've done around that time too. Again, just essential if you like your punk music. So you might occasionally see CDs like this where the CD sort of front is like part of a poster, so I've got the poster up on my wall there. So this, again around the same time with De La Soul, is Del the Funky Homo Sapien, who again kind of heard about because of Gorillaz, thanks to the song Clint Eastwood. So again, this is a classic golden age hip hop album. I wish my brother George was here. Sort of jazz rap, I suppose, but again a bit like De La Soul's got sort of a playful, humorous attitude to it. Sleeping on my couch, listen to that, man. You never hear tracks being made like that anymore. What else is on here? Well, Dark Skin Girls is on here. Yeah, you definitely don't get tracks like that anymore, which is... Got a few Death Grips albums to show you here. Death Grips, huge on the internet. Not really so much in terms of on the radio, I suppose, but Death Grips are a group that, again, are a bit of a sort of acquired taste, but I love them. They're one of my favourite groups of all time. So I've got a few albums by them here. So Ex-Military, the mixtape, never been officially released, but is probably one of my favourite mixtapes of all time. The Money Store, which is funny because I've mentioned before and probably will say in the future, albums they'll exist where you might not like them at first, but you grow to love them. And this album I always liked, but it's only recently, and I've been listening to this since it came out in 2012, I've recently just really started to love it. There's just great tracks on here that, you know, I always thought were really good, but for some reason just even more listens, I'm just like, oh, this is just absolutely fantastic. There's literally just one track on here which I'm a bit on. I'll probably do a discography review of Death Grips one day, but I'll just give away the spoiler. The one track I'm not big on is The Cage, but every other track I think's great. My favourites at the moment are Pump Weight, System Blower, Lost Boys, Blackjack. I'm going to end up saying most of the album by then, so yeah, Money Store. No Love Deep Web was £13 and now £2 from HMV. What's going on here? Where's the album? Why is it in this little pocket thing? What does this say? Warning, contains graphic imagery which may be offensive to some people. Well, I know my fans don't get offended easily, so we're all grown-ups here, aren't we? We can just open this up here. There we go. Is that it? That's not offensive. There, that's all it is. Not that bad. Who cares? I mean, I know my editor, when he or she looks at that, they're just going to be like, I'm not going to censor that, because who cares? We've seen it before, everybody. Alright? Yeah, so No Love Deep Web. It's a really nice album, you know, really nice, and it just makes you feel good, a bit like De La Soul, you know, songs like Come Up and Get Me and Lock Your Doors. Lock Your Doors, that's just hell in a song, that. No Love, Little Boy. The song Deep Web, I really like. Artificial Death in the West. There's a lot of excellent songs on here, but not my favourite album by Death Grips. What have we got here? Bottomless Pit. Another really good album by them. Again, some of my favourites on here, like Spikes and Three Bedrooms in a Good Neighbourhood and BB Poison. That's a really catchy song on there. Ring a Bell's a fantastic song. But again, you know, just not the one that I listen to all the time. My favourite album by them is probably Year of the Snitch, which has become one of my favourite albums of all time. I own this on vinyl too. I don't know. I'll tell you what, when I've been going to the gym, I've probably had this on play every time I've been to the gym, at least once a week since this came out, and this is about a year and a half old now. So I've heard this a ridiculous amount of times. I don't know what it is about it. Again, might do a discography review eventually where I talk highly about it, but this is probably my favourite album by them. If I have to say my favourites at the moment, it's always probably going to be Ha 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 and Black Paint, those two tracks. One of my favourites ever of all time, those two. But yeah, you have the Snitch. Brilliant. Groove is in the heart, delight, classic, dance pop, hip house, jam. Early 90s, just one of my favourite feel-good songs ever. If you haven't heard the song, features Q-Tip from A Tribe Called Quest. Brilliant, man. Deltron 3030, more hip-hop. So this, again, features Del the Funky Homo Sapien, actually, funnily enough, and Damon Albarn's on here on the intro. A bit like Cannibalox in a way, where it's very futuristic and just sort of mind-bending and something that you will need to give a lot of plays because it's very dense, but this is a hip-hop classic. Alright, this is really bad here. I only own one Depeche Mode album physically, so it's of course Violator. It's again one of my favourite synth-pop albums ever. Well, you know, obviously it's got Personal Jesus on here, Enjoy the Silence is on here too, but one of my favourite songs by Depeche Mode is Blue Dress. So this is a classic, but yeah, absolute classic. Probably, I mean, I've never been an Eric Clapton fan, even though I do own a bit Cream. I personally think he's just never beaten this in terms of quality. I couldn't recommend this enough. Yes, I know it's got the song Layla, but it's all just fantastic, great melodic blues music. Oh, it's Devo. This is the first album by them, Are We Not Men? We Are Devo, and an EP that they've done as well as Devo Live, which I barely ever played, to be honest. But this is the debut, basically, the debut album by them is a classic post-punk new wave album. Features Mongoloid, Jocko Homo, Too Much Paranoia, Slap Your Mummy, I Saw My Baby Getting Sloppy, and a cover of Rolling Stones' I Can't Get No Satisfaction, which I've had a massive love and hate relationship with, but brilliant, classic. More hip-hop, more classic sort of jazz rap. This is Digital Planets. So this is debut and the second album they reached, Blowout Coma. Only ever made 2 albums, sadly. Really good though. If you like A Tribe Called Quest, I couldn't see why you wouldn't like this. Sort of hip-hop, this is Grime. Only album that I own by Dizzy, but Dizzy Rascal's Boy in the Corner. Again, just of course this is a classic, especially with Grime. The fact that this guy made this album when he was 17. What? Wow. And produced a lot of it as well. What? Yeah, but I Love You is one of my favourite tracks ever. Fix Up Looks Sharp's on here. Round We Go's fantastic. Just a Rascal's a classic. I used to hear that all the time on Chab's mobile phones, you know. I couldn't recommend this highly enough as well. If you want to try and get into UK hip-hop in general, most people would say the same thing, but yeah, you got to try a Boy in the Corner. This is a bit different. This is Eric Dolphy, Out to Lunch. This is sort of avant-garde jazz, free jazz in a way. This is really nuts. I discovered this basically thanks to Frank Zappa. He made a song dedicated to Eric Dolphy on an album by him called Weasels Rip My Flesh. This is a jazz classic. It's, some of it is just like, is this like enjoyable, but some days I'm just in the mood and I can listen to this and I'm just like, this is one of my favourite jazz albums ever. So yeah, just throw on the first track, Hat and Beard, see what you think of it. I really like the album because it uses like vibraphones on here. So, and I don't know, I've always been a sucker for like jazz music with vibraphones. It just feels right. Maybe not the first album to be trying when it comes to jazz music, but Out to Lunch is a classic. Hey-ya, hoo-ha, hey-ya, hoo-ha, hey-ya, hoo-ha, hey-ya, hoo-ha, hey-ya, hoo-ha, hey-ya, hoo-ha, hey-ya. I am a big fan of The Doors. I've only got 3 albums to show you by them that I own. I had a few more albums by them. In fact, I used to own every album by them not including the post-Jim Morrison albums, but all of them were like old issues, and I wanted to eventually try and get the sort of new versions, which are the ones that are in this sort of clamshell looking thing, but just never got around to it. But never mind. So the debut, so Waiting for the Sun. Yeah, anyone remember this who used to go to HMV, this Blue Cross sale thing they used to do, 30% off I think it was? And when do you ever see anything like that? £5. You never get that nowadays, a bit weird. And the only sort of real deluxe edition of an album that they've done, at least up until now, LA Woman. Do you want this to be controversial? I'm not a big fan of LA Woman. I'm not really huge into it. There's at least 3 other albums, or even 4, by the Doors that I'd rather listen to than LA Woman. I mean, don't get us wrong, there's some of the best Doors songs on here, like Love Her Madly, Riders of the Storm is on here, Been Down So Long I really like as well, but some of it I'm just boring to us. I know it's bad, but it's just what I think, you know. Alright, so before we talk about Nick Drake, we're going to be talking a bit about Drake, the artist, who I used to remember thinking, no one ever pays attention to Nick Drake, this Drake rapper, he's just like taking his limelight. I remember thinking stuff like that, like, what was wrong with me then? I was such a weirdo back in the day, man. I'm totally normal now, but anyways, I ended up becoming a really big Drake fan up until he released the album Views, and he's just totally fell off in quality, but never mind. An underrated debut by him, Thank Me Later. A lot of really good songs on there. Got Take Care, which is probably my favourite album by him. This was the first album I ever got by him, Nothing Was the Same. And my favourite project in general, a bit like what I was showing before about the Del the Funky Soul Homo Sapien album. Got the poster up there on my wall. If you're reading this, it's too late. One of my favourites ever, that. So anyways, Nick Drake. I don't own Brighter Later anymore, I gave that to a friend. But 5 Leaves Left, I got here. Pink Moon, and sort of like a outtakes sort of thing, Family Tree as well, which is worth a listen if you're a big Nick Drake fan. Nick Drake, one of my favourite singer-songwriters ever. Just read up about Nick Drake. His music is just absolutely magical. If you never tried him out, you're doing yourself a disservice. Any Nick Drake song could be a great starter. A bit of a tragedy, basically. But the 3 albums that he gave us, and even the unreleased stuff, is just brilliant music. And it always makes us think, you know, he was an artist who only now is starting to get the recognition that he really deserved. And it makes you think, how many artists and bands are out there that only because of the internet age, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, will finally get the recognition they deserve because they've just been totally forgotten back in the 60s or 70s, you know? They might still be out there, you never know. There might be a Nick Drake that no one really knows about. Just makes you think, you know? Ian Jury. So, New Boots and Panties. This is like pub rock, punk rock as well. He's a bit of a legend, especially over here in England, Ian Jury. One of my favourite feel-good tracks is Reasons to Be Cheerful Part 3 by him. This album doesn't have it, it's a bonus track, but this has Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, which is a great classic track by him. But there is a lot of really good songs on here. In fact, I made a suggestion for you guys, get the family around and play really loud a song called Plain Store Patricia and just film it, just for me. I just want to see the reaction. It's a really good song because everyone will be like, oh, this is really good. Just do that for me. I think it'd be good, that, yeah. So, Dying Fetus. Oh, I've got another one of these No Love Deep Web things. Censored. What the hell, man? It's not that bad. Look. What's with this, man? On this channel, we're all adults. I'm not censoring anything, okay? It's not that bad. I mean, even the album title, who cares? I could say this on CBBC without any issues whatsoever. Yeah, so brutal death metal is even heavier than death metal. It gets to the point where it's not really pleasurably listenable. It's more of a like testosterone, I'm really pissed off and I want to listen to something which is like the feeling of pissed off in music form. But this still has a lot of catchy riffs on it, actually. The drumming on here is just, what the hell? But yeah, Not for everybody, definitely not. But for me, it sometimes gets a little angry. Just a little angry. This is really good. And of course, what CD collection wouldn't be complete with just a little Bob Dylan? I used to own actually probably another 5 albums by him here, but I ended up just getting rid of some of them. Let's be honest, he is a legend. He's one of the greatest artists that's ever lived, but he did release some shite. So I got rid of some of that shite, and even then I've still got nearly 20 albums here. Forgive us, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but just know, one of my favourite artists ever. And here we go. So Bob Dylan, original solo album. That's not the front cover, I don't know why it's that, a bit weird. This has a mono and stereo mix and 2 extra tracks too. Yeah, very weird. Does it have it? No, doesn't even have it in here. Oh, just broke it. Shit. I don't know where the freewheel and Bob Dylan's gone. That CD seems to have disappeared, but that's one of my favourites ever by him, one of my favourite albums ever. I do own it on record though, but not here on CD. The times they are a-changing. Another side of Bob Dylan. Bringing it all back home. Highway 61 Revisited. Might be my favourite by him, Blonde on Blonde. John Wesley Hardin. Nashville Skyline. New Morning. Desire. The Basement Tapes might again be one of my favourites. Don't know where Blood on the Tracks has gone. I own that. Bit weird. Soul Train Coming. Time Out of Mind. Love and Theft. Modern Times. Tempest. And again, I'm sure I had more of the bootleg series here, but for now I can only find 1 to 3. And again, considered one of the greatest live albums of all time, Volume 4, live at the Royal Albert Hall. Alright, do you want to hear my Bob Dylan impression? Hello everybody, please put down the phone because here's another video by You're Finally Home. Welcome everybody to my CD collection. I thought it would be good to give a little mention that in the next part it will be. I hope you stick around, I hope you come and see. Please keep watching, I hope you enjoy this. This is Bob Dylan. No, it's not, I'm taking the piss. What am I doing? What? Seriously, what the fuck am I doing? So thanks for watching everybody. Hope you enjoyed this part. Please stick around because of course I will be making part E soon enough. So hope you enjoyed this video. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening.